Hello, welcome to my video. Before you start watching, I will ask you to subscribe to the channel, as more than 99% of people watch videos without a subscription. Tatiana was running around the apartment and getting ready for her flight. She was working as a stewardess. It was her childhood dream to visit different countries, to see the whole world, and the woman liked the altitude. She was not afraid of it. On the contrary, she experienced an inexpressible delight, watching the clouds behind the window and the tiny cities below are visible. One thing that frustrated Tanya was that every time she went on a trip, she had to leave her 3 children with a babysitter. The babies were very painful to part from, crying, and did not want their mother to leave. 3-year-old Mila was especially upset. She hugged her mother so tightly, nestled her whole body and whispered, "Don't go, Mommy. I don't want to. Will you be back soon? We're so sick without you." Tears choked Tatiana. She stroked the babies' heads and soothed them as best she could. "Mom will be back soon. She'll make some money and bring presents for everyone. Andriusha, son, you're in charge. Keep an eye on your sisters and listen to your nanny Luba. I promise, when I come back, we'll all go to Disneyland together for a whole day." Already on the way to the airport, Tanya closed her eyes and began to remember her life. Not long ago, she could not have imagined that she would become a mother of 3 children at once and would lose her beloved husband because of it, and how beautifully everything began. Tanya grew up in an orphanage. She was an orphan. She did not even have distant relatives. She was dropped off at the gates of the orphanage a week after she was born. No note, no name, nothing. It was as if an unwanted kitten had been thrown out of the gate and taken care of. The janitor, Fedor, was sweeping the orphanage early in the morning and was the first to find the baby's basket. The baby grew up quiet and calm. She was loved by the caretakers and nannies for her obedience and lively mind. Tanya was often bullied by other children, but her best friend Nastya was always there to protect her. She was the exact opposite of Tanya, perky, resolute, fought on a par with the boys. But the girls got on well with each other. They supplemented each other. Tanya always counterbalanced her friend, and the latter, on the contrary, tried to shake up the overly calm girl. Outwardly, Tanya and Nastya were very similar, both dark-haired, brown-eyed, with curly, beautiful curls, just like sisters. Tanya was an excellent student. She was easily able to do all the subjects, especially English. Even her pronunciation worked by itself, without any effort. The teacher, Anton Vasilievich, could not rejoice, because usually children have trouble mastering the basic subjects, to say nothing of the English language. But Tanya was different. She zealously studied reference books, dictionaries, and read additional literature, mastering English. Nastya, on the other hand, studied more or less. Most of her homework was done by Tanya, and she dreamed of a beautiful rich prince and an easy marriage. The girls often liked to talk for a long time and made plans for the future. Tanya shared hers. "You know, Nastya, I most of all want to go to university, to the Department of Foreign Languages, to get a good profession and make my way in life. Although I understand that it's almost unrealistic for an orphan to get there. In fact, we are offered either seamstress or cook, vocational school, and enough. And I also want to fly a real plane. Can you imagine how great it must be to be there, in the clouds?" Nastya, on the other hand, had a different opinion. "No, I definitely don't want to study. It's not my thing. My dream is to meet a rich husband and live happily ever after. So what? Aren't we beautiful? Don't we deserve it? What if we're lucky?" Tanya only laughed. "You can say that again. Wealthy princes marry wealthy princesses, and love with a poor orphan happens only in fairy tales and soap operas. It's certainly not realistic in life." However, the girls' lives went on according to their own script, without asking anyone. After graduating from the orphanage, our girlfriends were assigned to the outskirts of the city and given a dead room in the family dormitory. Tanya was very upset, but Nastya encouraged her. It's okay, my friend. Don't get sour. You know I'm handy. We'll do some repairs and get on with our lives. The main thing is that we are together, next to each other. It's more fun. Over time, the girls settled in. Tanya actually went to university, though by correspondence, and got a job at a gas station as a sales clerk, a 3-day-a-week cashier, and she had to live on something. One day, a respectable man, so nice, smelling of expensive perfume, stopped by to fill up. Tanya served him friendly, and he kept his eyes on the brown-eyed Oriental beauty. For some reason, the girl's heart beat faster, and a stupid smile did not leave her face. When the visitor went outside, Tanya suddenly discovered that he had not taken the change, and yet the amount was quite large. Without thinking, she apologized to the people in line and jumped out into the street. "Man, wait, you forgot your change. Here, take it." He turned around and looked at the young girl in surprise. "Oh, really? I was thinking about something. Thank you for returning it. These days there are hardly any honest salesmen left. My name is Alexei. And you?" "I'm Tanya," the girl answered embarrassedly. Alexei smiled. "I invite you, Taneshka, to dinner as a sign of gratitude, and simply because I like you very much. I know a decent Japanese restaurant. Do you like Japanese food?" Tanya's heart was ready to jump out, and she even blushed. "I don't know. It's so unexpected. Can I not come alone with a girlfriend? It's kind of scary. I don't know you at all." The man laughed. "You can, of course. Then I'll take a friend with me too. It'll be even more fun that way." "Well, see you tomorrow then. I won't say goodbye." Tanya cheerfully waved at him and ran back behind the cash register, where customers were already grumbling unhappily in line. The day flew by unnoticed, and in the evening, when she came home, the first thing she did was run to Nastya to share such news. Nastya just threw up her hands. "You're doing great. You haven't forgotten about me either. And you're quiet too. What if I'm lucky and those businessmen aren't married? I won't let him get away with it. I'll get him right away. I'm so tired of writing these sheets. I'm sick of it." The friend was embarrassed. "I don't know. We'll see how it goes." "So unexpected, of course. What if we embarrass you? I mean, we've never been to a Japanese restaurant. You probably have to eat with chopsticks, and I don't know how. The rich people will laugh at us and leave." Nastya only waved her hand. "You're so tedious, Tanya. We'll figure it out on the spot. You better think. What shall we wear? Not in jeans and sneakers to go." Tanya's misgivings were completely in vain. The evening went wonderfully. Lyosha came with a friend, Andrei. They'd worked in different companies, but were friends and sometimes vacationed together. Alexei was divorced. Andrew was not married yet, and so the two families formed. Andrew and Nastya lived in harmony, did not quarrel, and she bore him first a son, whom they named after his father, Andrew, and 2 years later 2 more children, Sveta and Malashka. Surprisingly, childbirth and pregnancy were given to her friend easily. She did not even gain weight, was always positive and active. It seemed her irrepressible energy, and enough for 5 children. She took them to school and kindergartens, then to her classes, managed to make delicious lunches, and pamper her husband. Everything was burning in her hands. But Tanya's personal life did not work out so well. She loved Lyosha, though he was a real character, tried to please him in everything, and was literally torn between school, work, and home. And to get pregnant could not work, at least to death. But Lyosha did not insist on it. On the contrary, when they sometimes went to visit Nastya and Andrei, my husband was shocked and often resented it afterwards. God, it's a madhouse out there. There's a lot of noise, a lot of noise, a lot of yelling. It's like a kindergarten, not a house. Your friend's as crazy as a cat, breeding like a cat. There's no privacy. I'd be mad as hell. Tanya, on the contrary, secretly invited Nastya. In their house was always fun. Simple, smelled of cinnamon cookies in childhood. That's where the real strong family, which she and her friends so dreamed of in the orphanage. Tanya began to notice that Lyosha began to treat her much more lukewarmly, often allowed himself to come in drunk, and intimacy became something ordinary and routine. It was as if a wall was growing between them, thin at first, but thicker and thicker over the years. And a year ago, a terrible grief happened. Nastya and Andrei went to a charity event. They bought paintings, and the money was transferred to orphanages. They left their little ones with a nanny. But on their way home, on the night highway, they were run over by a drunken, reckless driver. In an instant, Tanya lost her closest person and her husband, and Nastya's 3 children were left orphans. Her friend couldn't let that happen, because back at the orphanage she and Nastya had made a vow that they wouldn't betray each other and would be together to the end. So she decided to get custody and take all 3 children with her. But it didn't work out that way. Lesha, upon learning about it, literally freaked out and started yelling, "I don't understand. Are you crazy or what? Over my dead body. I strongly object. Why do we need 3 spinagirls and even more strangers? They actually need to be fed, clothed, taught, and provided for. So your friend Nastrusha them with Andrew. And now we have to clean up." The woman cried and tried to talk sense into her abusive husband. "Leshenka, wake up. How can you say that? Nastya died, she crashed, and so did your friend, by the way. She was closer to me than my sister, she fought. She didn't let me get hurt in the orphanage. We shared every crust of bread with her. It wasn't the children's fault. What awaits them in an orphanage? Have you been there? Do you know? It's hell. You wouldn't wish that on an enemy. Not only that, they could be separated, and then they would grow up far away from each other. Well, we're not poor. We don't go from bread to water. Let's give these kids a happy childhood, especially since we don't have any of our own." But Alexei slammed his fist on the table and barked, almost swearing. "I said no, period. If you take the kids, you get a divorce. I don't need other people's mouths to hump for the rest of my life." It was very hard for Tanya to make this choice, because she loved Lesha deeply and truly, and she knew that if she took the children, she would most likely be alone, because 3 children is not 1. But there was no way she could betray her friend, no way she could sleep soundly, knowing that Nastya's children were suffering in the orphanage. She did get custody and divorced Alexei. He shouted angrily goodbye to her. "What a fool. You'll be sorry you lost such a man, but it'll be too late." Tanya only waved her hand, swallowing her tears. "So my fate is such a miserable one. Goodbye, Lesha, and be happy." She cried into her pillow at home for a long time, not understanding how it could be. Why was Lyosha such a cruel man? Didn't he feel the slightest pity for the children? And nothing stirred in his soul. Tanya combined her and Nastya's rooms to make a 2-bedroom apartment. This is where she brought her 3 children. After all, distant relatives immediately swooped down on Nastya's late husband's property, only they didn't need the children for nothing. So they were only happy that there was some blissful woman willing to take on such an impossible burden. Only one person supported Tanya, Aunt Klava, a kind-hearted neighbor. She agreed to look after the little ones on the days when Tanya was on shift. At first it was terribly difficult. Money was categorically insufficient, had always had to borrow from colleagues before the paycheck, and the children could not come to terms with the death of their parents and recover from this grief. If little Mila immediately began to flatter Tanya, the older Andrew shunned her, shut down, and even began to stutter a little on a nervous basis. As soon as Tanya tried to hug or cuddle him, he squirmed and muttered, "You're not my mother. Why did she leave us? Why did she die? My daddy too. I don't want that. I want to be like before. To live with daddy and mummy." We had to take him to a psychologist for a long time and get him out of that state. And it was not easy for Tanya, because 3 children is very hard. She often thought about Nastya and wondered where her friend drew her strength not to get tired and to share her love with everyone. How did she manage it? 6 months passed. Tanya was exhausted, but no matter how much she worked, she still didn't have enough money. Besides, Andriusha was seriously ill. He had always been quiet and calm, unlike the restless Sveta and Mila, but here he was completely weak. He began to sleep a lot. Near the nose and lips, often blue skin. It was necessary to walk even a not very long distance, and he complained of a pain in the heart. And then he actually fainted at school during gym class. The boy was admitted to the pediatric department for a comprehensive examination. That's where it turned out that the child had a heart defect and needed a surgery, but it cost, as usual, a fabulous amount of money. Of course, they were put on a waiting list, but they had to wait more than a year. But one chance encounter turned Tanya's whole life upside down. Our heroine had just finished her shift and was hurrying to the grocery store and then home to her children. At the door, Tatiana encountered a very stylish and fashionably dressed lady in dark sunglasses and with an expensive handbag over her shoulder. The stranger suddenly took off her glasses and exclaimed, "Tanyusha, sweetheart, hello. How are you? How many years, how many winters? Where did you disappear to? I haven't heard from you since your divorce from Lesha." The dumbfounded Tanya could hardly recognize this lady as a mutual acquaintance of her and her ex-husband, Inga. The women were happy to meet, sat down at a table in a nearby cafe, and started chatting amicably. My friend told me that she divorced her husband, Arseny, who was a notorious minx and womanizer, and left everything to become a stewardess. She is glad and happy. The pay is so good, and she can see the world. And the job is not dusty, though it is responsible, of course. And Tanya told me that she was bringing up her dead friend's 3 children, and that it was very hard. Her cashier's salary was not enough for anything, and she could hardly make ends meet. Inga immediately offered, "Tanechka, so why are you sour? Drop this gas station and come to us. You seem to have excellent English, and you have an education, and you're so pretty yourself. Do you want me to talk to the management and ask them for you?" The woman was even confused. "You can say that, too. You're alone, and I have 3 kids around my neck. Where am I going to take them? I have to look after them every day when I'm on the road. Although I would be happy, since childhood I dreamed of it." Inga parried, "Tanya, we don't live in the Stone Age. That's what nannies are for. I'll tell you how much you'll get a month, and you'll understand everything. I understand it's constant travel, but you can provide for the family with dignity, and not think, buy bread or a sausage today." Tanya even whistled when she heard the salary. She had never seen such money before, and compared to that amount, she was now earning pennies at the gas station. Tatiana was weighing everything. Why, and maybe really try. What if they take it? I have nothing to lose. At least Sutashka in kindergarten dressed. Andrew's surgery can save up for the children long overdue closet change, and repairs will not hurt. But this is constant travel. Turns out that the kids will again be sad and suffer separation. What to do? And yet, after weighing everything, Tanya made up her mind. "I agree. You tell me where to go and so on. I want to try." With a personal life did not work out, maybe at least the dream of childhood will come true. Tanya successfully completed the training courses. She was taught the rules of first aid, how to behave with passengers according to the instructions, and what to do with problematic customers, of which there are many on flights. The examination included testing her English skills and her behavior in emergency situations. 3 months later, Tatiana was on her first flight. The children panicked and cried a lot. "Mommy, don't go away. You'll be gone for a week. How can we be without you? Don't leave us." Tanya's heart was tearing apart because she had long genuinely loved all 3 of them and considered them family. She calmed them down as best she could. "My dears, I can't do it any other way. This new job will bring a lot of money, We'll buy you toys and clothes. Go to the amusement park. You just need to be patient. For now, listen to Granny Clava. Don't play around, so I won't worry. And then I'll find you a nanny. We'll choose together. Andriusha, look, don't eat ice cream. You have a weak throat. And don't let Mila walk barefoot on the cold floor. And do not stay up late into the night, or you won't wake up in the morning. That's it, my little bunnies. Come here, I'll give you a big hug. On the first flight, Tanya was very nervous. Her legs were shaking, especially when the plane entered the turbulence zone. But then, with time, she got used to it. She really liked her job. She enjoyed it. The only disappointment was the constant flights and separation from the kids. 6 months later, life really got better. Now, Tanya didn't have to worry about how to pay the utilities or what to buy clothes and groceries for. She had enough for everything. She was very proud that her children were always dressed up. They had phones and new toys, just like everyone else. She sometimes dreamt about Nastya. She didn't say anything, just looked at her friend and smiled appreciatively. And Tanya knew that she was doing everything right. And today Tanya was off on a special flight. Her partner persuaded her to cater a rich man's wedding right in the sky, on the plane. That's the rich people's whim. They promised very good pay. Tanya did not really want to. She had already seen inadequate drunken passengers, but decided that such a sum would be good for her. She would add it to her son's surgery. It would be better anyway. And with a heavy heart, she agreed. The private plane had a bar and a place to dance, all the conditions for a heavenly celebration. The few guests, all dressed up rich people, had already gathered, and the plane took off. The pilot Sergei was already proven. Tanya had known him for a long time, and she was calm. He was just an ace at his job. But it so happened that the plane hit the turbulence zone. It shook a lot. The frightened passengers panicked and began to resent it. Tanya and her partner remained calm as required by the regulations and helped them to take their seats and fasten their seatbelts. Our heroine was buckling up a young girl when she saw the groom sitting behind her, and she just gasped. It was Lesha, her ex-husband. Everything was stirred up and overturned in her soul. She even felt sick. She hurried to turn away, so he did not recognize her, and went into the bow of the liner. Her thoughts raced one after another. You rascal. You've found yourself a rich little bimbo. Well. Your wife's going to suffer. She'll be in for a world of hurt. The wedding was in full swing, with guests feasting on delicacies and drinking champagne, getting drunk and dancing to loud music. My partner was running around like a madwoman, serving customers, and Tanya hardly ever went into the salon. Alyona became furious and started reprimanding her. Tanya, why don't you come out to the guests? Are you trying to put me in charge of everything? I'm already falling off my feet, and the money is split. You're such a sly one. Tanya replied with tears in her eyes. You can have all the royalties. Do you even know who's getting married? It's my ex-husband, Lesha. He left me and found a rich woman. Do you think I like watching all this? It makes my heart bleed. If you want to kill me, I won't go out. Alyona was quiet and silent. Then she answered, all right, if that's the case. I'll manage somehow. Well, don't get so upset. You'll find love again. Tanya was quietly observing the festivities, and she noticed this. The hubby kept winking at some young beauty, who was one of the guests invited to the wedding, and then wrote her something on a napkin and discreetly handed it to her. The girl read it, smiled slyly, and threw it in the trash. The young wife did not notice anything, because the party was in full swing. The plane landed in an exotic country. It was supposed to stay for 24 hours. Tanya, not knowing why, immediately began to rummage through the trash for that very napkin. Her gut told her something was wrong. Finally, among the mountain of garbage, she found it, unwrapped it, and read it. Lovely, calm down, don't be angry. I don't love that fool, and I'll get rid of her soon. It's all for our sake. We'll live like kings with her millions, The blood rushed to Tanya's head. That's the way to do it. What a bastard. So the bride is in real danger. We must warn her immediately. The woman found the pilot's guest lists, found out the name and phone number of Karina Vasilieva, and immediately called her when she got off the plane. Hello. Is this Karina? Hello. My name is Tatiana. I'm a flight attendant on the plane you flew in today. I need to meet with you urgently, one-on-one. You're in danger. I'm begging you. Just 10 minutes of your time. The girl answered grudgingly. What kind of a stupid joke is that? I just got married, and I'm on my honeymoon, by the way. Well, if you insist, then let's meet in a cafe today. I'll text you the address, but I think you got something wrong. My husband just worships me, and I'm certainly not in any danger. Tanya arrived at the cafe even earlier, afraid she would be late. She ordered coffee and waited for Karina. Exactly at the appointed time, the girl, so cute, blooming and happy, burst into the room. Tanya waved to her. Karina sat down at the table and started with the main thing. Well, tell me, what are you here for? What did you want to tell me? Tanya silently handed her the napkin. The girl read what was written there 5 times, and her face began to change dramatically. It was Lesha's handwriting, no doubt about it. Karina shrieked. Where did you get this? Tanya began to explain incoherently. You see, when I agreed to cater a private wedding, I didn't know who was getting married. And then, already in the salon, I saw Alexei. He was my ex-husband. But that's not the point. I saw Lyosha winking at one of the ladies, the blonde one, who was also wearing a burgundy dress. And then he handed her this napkin. So I decided to sneak a peek at what was written there. And when I read it, I was shocked. So I thought I'd warn you. And then it's up to you to decide. Karina's face changed, and she became sad and thoughtful. I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. Until half an hour ago, I was the happiest woman in the world. And now I realize my husband has a mistress. It's horrible. Excuse me, I have to go. I need to think about everything. But wait a minute. Lyosha told me that his ex-wife was a greedy, scandalous bitch who only took money from him, who walked around and worked nowhere. So that's you. Tanya grinned bitterly. Well, Lyosha, of course, is a master of bullshit, and you were not left out of it. I worked at a gas station all my life as a cashier, and I was very fond of the bastard, in spite of his difficult character. But a close friend of mine was in a terrible car accident and died. 3 children were left orphaned. How could I leave them? I was an orphan myself. I grew up in an orphanage. I know how bad it is there. I begged and pleaded with Leshu to take them away. He wouldn't take them. He said he didn't need someone else's baby. And this despite the fact that the father of the children was his best friend. We were family friends. That's how we got divorced. So now I'm a mother of 3. I'm doing the best I can. And you, please be careful. You know your husband very poorly. For the sake of money, Lyosha is capable of a lot. I'll go. Have a good day. Karina decided to double-check everything. A worm of doubt began to eat away at her from within. When she arrived home, she discreetly installed cameras in the apartment and cheated. In the evening, over dinner, she intriguingly told her husband, "Cute, I didn't tell you. I have the most important gift for you." Can you guess? Lesha thought dreamily. What was my bunny thinking? Did you decide to give me a car? Karina laughed. Better. I'm pregnant. You're going to be a daddy. Isn't that amazing? We're having a baby. Yours and mine. In fact, Karina wasn't pregnant at all. She just wanted to see how her husband reacted and to speed up the process of checking. After all, if he wanted to eliminate her, he would do it in the shortest possible time. After all, he didn't want a baby. Lesha tried to portray exuberant joy, but it came out ridiculous and implausible, and Karina immediately noticed it. Now she began to look at her husband in a completely different way, and to notice such little things that she had never seen before. The very next day, hubby suddenly said, "You know what, my love? Let's celebrate the occasion. Somewhere secluded, on a lake or a river, wine, fruit, and a sea of love." Karina immediately smelled a problem and answered, "Great, but I'm feeling a little stormy now, you know. So let's just stay here at home. Let's sit on the summer terrace, celebrate, and then go for a walk in the park." Lyosha volunteered to organize everything himself. He ordered seafood, salads, drinks, juice, and set the table himself. And Karina said, "You just lie there for a while. Honey, rest. You need to take care of yourself now. I can do it myself. Don't worry. I'll give you a romantic surprise." Karina went to her room and watched her husband's actions on the mobile app. What she saw shocked her. Her husband opened a bottle of her favorite orange juice, poured some powder into it, shook it well, and closed it. He slipped the bottle into her pocket. The shocked woman immediately called the police, and she crossed herself, exhaled as if nothing had happened, and came out to her husband. He was sitting at a richly stocked table, shining like a polished samovar. The hubby immediately obligingly put a salad on the hot meal and poured his wife some juice. "I was thinking, you can't have wine now, can you? Here, I bought your favorite, orange juice with pulp. Well, my love, shall we drink? Here's to us, to our baby. I'm so happy." Karina smiled beamingly. "Of course, my love. Let's just wait for the guests." Just a few minutes. Lesh's face changed and he became tense. "Did you invite someone? What for? We said it would be a romantic dinner, didn't we?" The girl winked at him cheerfully. "This is going to be another surprise. I love surprises. We're on our honeymoon after all. Let's have some fun." There was a knock at the door of the apartment, and Karina went to open it. There were two policemen standing on the doorstep. They introduced themselves and asked, "You called the police to this address. What happened?" Karina answered calmly, "My husband wants to poison me. There's poison in the glass and in the juice bottle. I have all the proof. And he has a bottle of poison in his right trouser pocket." The cops immediately twisted Alexei up and started searching him. And indeed, in his pants they found a vial with some white powder in it. They confiscated it, and the juice too. They started asking Alexei, "Do you care to explain what's in the vial? Were you really trying to kill your wife? Although you don't have to explain, let the investigator deal with you at the station." The man was screaming his head off. "You viper. You look like a fool. Let go of me. It's arbitrary. This is my heart medicine. I never poisoned anybody." Karina grinned bitterly. "You can't get away with this, honey. I have a tape of you putting powder in my juice. And then you call someone and promise to get rid of me soon, permanently. Just tell me one thing. Why? Why did you marry me? Sing songs about love, swear fidelity, if you had a mistress all this time and dreamed of getting rid of me. Because you would have had it all anyway. Your business was on the verge of collapse, and only my investments saved it. And this is how you repay me. I can't believe it." Alexei was hysterical. "You ask why? Because you have to share. You were born with everything. I had to make my own way. That doesn't seem fair to me. Why can't I enjoy my life the same way and throw away millions? Why not with you? Have you seen yourself in the mirror? A gray mouse with a switch instead of a nose. Yeah, who'd go for you for love, anyway? Skinny as a board, no figure, nothing. I've had enough of you. You're a pain in the arse. I just don't get it. How? How did you know what I was up to?" "Nobody knew about it." Karina laughed. "It's not a world without good people. I'll make sure you get the maximum sentence, so you'll rot in jail instead of resorts. Get that bastard out of here. I'll file for divorce myself." When they took Lesha away, Karina finally let herself relax and burst into tears. She so wanted to share her grief with someone, and then she remembered the stewardess and immediately dialed her. "Tanya, are you in town now? You were right then. Alexei almost killed me. He wanted to poison me. The bastard. Can you come to me? Please. I feel so bad." Tatiana rushed over at once. She understood how badly Karina was feeling right now. She herself had barely recovered from her painful divorce. They hugged each other like relatives, drank wine, and cried, relieving each other's souls. Karina never tired of thanking Tanya. "Thank you, Tanya. You really saved my life. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be alive right now. And that scoundrel would be living happily with his bimbo on my money. We live in the same town. Let's be friends. Let's talk. You said you had problems with your son. I can help. Look for a doctor, and I'll pay for everything. I don't know about you, but I won't go near a man for a long time. Everybody sees me as a bag of money, and nobody cares about my soul. Fuck them all." From that day on, Tanya and Karina became best friends. Karina often came to visit them, and the children immediately fell in love with her because she was very kind and adored children. Her son Andriusha underwent a costly heart surgery. Karina, as promised, helped with the money, and the boy quickly went on the mend. Tanya even took a vacation and spent all her time at her son's bedside. It was then that he, probably for the first time since the death of his parents, sincerely hugged her and said, "Mommy, I love you so much. We are a real friendly family. Thank you. I'm not a little kid anymore, and I understand how hard it is for you to be with us." Tanya, too, hugged her son and whispered, "All three of you have been family to me for a long time. Remember, no matter what happens, I'm here for you. I'll always shelter you from trouble, and I'll never leave you." In turn, Karina decided to introduce Tanya to her mother. The woman's name was Antonina Petrovna. She had worked all her life as a midwife in a maternity hospital. She remained in her profession until the last moment, even though she had a millionaire husband. She truly loved her job and cared about every case. She had a severe, incurable, serious illness with only months to live. Karina hired the best caregivers, custom-prescribed strong painkillers, and checked on her mother as often as she could. She did not know how to tell her that Lyosha had turned out to be such a bastard and Karina was alone again. After all, her mother was so happy that she would go quietly, knowing that her daughter was in good hands. So, to soften the hard conversation, the woman decided to introduce her mother to Tanya, her best friend. Tatiana said hello and looked at this poor woman with her eyes puffed up with illness. At first they talked about the scoundrel Lesha. Antonina Petrovna only shook her head. "God, my daughter, how did God save you from imminent doom? And to you, Taneshka, thank you so much for not staying away, and yet you warned my daughter of the danger. Tell us a little about yourself, who your parents are, how you live. I can't go anywhere, I'm exhausted, and live communication is very important for me." Tanya began to tell. "I myself am an orphan, brought up in the Ray of Hope orphanage. I was abandoned there almost immediately after I was born, without a note or any information. Our janitor, Uncle Fedia, found me. He named me Tatiana as his granddaughter, and gave me the same rare surname as he had, Stutzberg, because he had Germans in his family. There I became friends with one girl, Nastya. We were like sisters, even closer. We swore to each other that if there was trouble, we would not leave each other and we would support each other. Then we got married almost at the same time. Nastya gave birth to 3 children, but God never gave me one. Alexei was my ex-husband. We lived like everyone else. Sometimes we quarreled, sometimes we made up. My spouse had a complicated character, but I loved him much and tried to accommodate him. But one day a terrible grief happened. My friend and her husband died in a car accident, and the children were orphaned in an instant. I mean, how could I leave them? Betray my friend? I decided to get custody and raise them. But my husband gave me an ugly scandal. He was totally against it. So we got divorced. And then it so happened that I became a stewardess. It was there, on the plane, attending his wedding, that I witnessed my ex-husband's meanness. Antonina Petrovna looked at Tanya with all her eyes. "Wait, Taneshka, how old are you, honey?" Tanya answered in surprise. 27. So is Karina. Why? Why do you ask? The old woman suddenly cried bitterly, shaking her whole body. Forgive me, Taniexka, forgive me, my darling. If you can, I was the one who dropped you off at the orphanage, you know. It all makes sense. Tatiana was taken aback, and Karina was at a loss for words. How so, Mom? You're talking nonsense. Maybe you're not feeling well. How are you feeling? Karina and Tanya looked at each other, thinking at the same time that maybe the woman's mind was going crazy because of her illness. But Antonina Petrovna pulled herself together and continued. Don't look at me like that. I'm not crazy. Listen to everything to the end and do not interrupt. I'm from a poor family myself. I grew up in poverty. My mother worked as a nanny. My father only drank. And since childhood, I dreamed of becoming a doctor. That's just raving about it. Obviously, I did not get into medical school. I had no money, but I got into a technical school and became a midwife. I loved my job madly. I cared about every woman in labor. I did everything to my conscience. I married a builder, Nikolai, but he also liked to drink, and we didn't have children. I suffered with him for 3 years and divorced. So I lived alone. My parents were dead by then. Then one night a woman came knocking on my door. I came out sleepy. I couldn't understand anything, and she was screaming, Antonina, help me. I'm begging you. There's a woman in the basement giving birth. She's screaming a lot. I said, call an ambulance. The medics will help her. What's that got to do with me? But that woman kept begging. She can't go to the ambulance. Katya is homeless. She has no documents. It's a dark story. She's going to die. She's been suffering for hours. Help. You can't even pity a dog, but a human being is dying. Have mercy. How could I refuse? Because I took the Hippocratic Oath. I quickly gathered sheets and a basin, alcohol, a tonometer, and rushed off. A young woman, no more than 20 years old, was giving birth in a shelter for the homeless. Her name was Catherine. She was pregnant with twins. The labor was complicated. The woman was thrashing around in her bunk. I was even frightened at first. What if she died in my arms? And I would also go to jail. But then I pulled myself together and began delivering the baby. Fortunately, everything turned out okay. The 2 girls were born. They didn't weigh much, but they looked healthy. I cut the umbilical cord, swaddled the babies as they were supposed to be swaddled, but the mother was sobbing and turning her nose up at them. Thank you. Finally, I gave birth. I thought I was going to die. Take my kids away. I don't need them. Give them to an orphanage or something. I'm a vagrant. I'm facing jail time. I'm on the run from the police. What am I going to do with 2 kids? And I got them pregnant. One of them took them and threw them away. And I had to take them away with a bang. I resented it. How come, Katya? Don't you even look at the babies? You've been carrying them for 9 months, haven't you? They are your own flesh and blood. But the woman in labor flatly refused. No, or you'll get sorry. I know myself. Take me away. I beg you. I'm lost. I'm a lost soul. Maybe someone at the orphanage will adopt the girls and their lives will get better. I'm sure they won't have a good life with me. What can I do? I brought the babies home, crying my heart out. I myself do not have children, and here are 2, and do not want his own mother. And then I had a crazy idea. I decided to keep one of the babies, adopt them, and raise them as my own. I didn't dare to keep 2 of them. Because I was divorced, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to make it. That's when I took you, Taneshka, to the baby's home at night, wrapped you up warmly, and left you. I knew they'd find you in the morning. And I kept Karinashka, adopted her as she should have, gave her surname, and began to raise her as my own daughter. But my heart was not in place, and I was slowly learning about your fate. I was told that a janitor found you and gave you your last name, And then I found out a year later what orphanage you were in. The nurse said that you were smart and cute, like a doll. Maybe I would get lucky and someone would take you away. And then my life changed abruptly, and I met Stephen, who fell in love with me at first sight. We met at the maternity hospital. He was visiting his sister there. I looked a lot like his mother, so he fell in love with me. He took Karina as his own, adopted her as he should have. She was 3 years old at the time. He moved me to his mansion. Stephen already had a big business. He had his own stores. He could provide me with everything. He didn't insist that I work, but I didn't want to. So I worked until my retirement as a midwife. I often thought of you, Taneshka. My conscience tormented me. I never told Stephen the whole truth. I thought you were adopted long ago. Both my husband and I loved Karina as our own. We loved her dearly. Stephen died a year ago, so suddenly, a blood clot broke off. And then I got sick, probably on nervous grounds. Pulls the last juice out of me, cursed disease. Soon it will take me to itself. At least I relieved my soul before I died. So forgive me, Tanya. I was a coward. I chickened out. I separated you from your sister. But when I hear your story, I realize what a saint you are. You put 3 children on your shoulders. You weren't afraid of anything. And I couldn't. Karina and Tanya were shocked to hear everything. Then they looked at each other and simultaneously cried and threw themselves into each other's arms. Karina sobbed. Tanya, my little sister, my God, what a happiness. It's unbelievable. We became best friends, shared one husband for 2, and had no idea we were sisters. Tanya also wailed. You know, Karinka, and I was so angry at you on the plane. I thought that's who Lyosha had traded me for. And then, when I saw his meanness, for some reason I felt so sorry for you. Believe me, as if you're not a stranger to me. And I decided to find you, to warn you, and it turns out it was the voice of blood. Probably. Sister, I thought I was alone, like a finger in the world, with no relatives, no one. And then I was so happy. Tanya tearfully rushed to Antonina Petrovna. I'm not mad at you at all. Why? You didn't give birth to us. On the contrary, if it hadn't been for you, my sister and I wouldn't even be here. A woman in labor could have died without any help. Thank you, at least Karina was raised. What about our mother? You don't know anything about her. Is she alive or dead? Antonina Petrovna shook her head. No, alas, I know almost nothing about her, except that the woman's name was Ekaterina Terekova. I delivered the baby and left with the babies. As a farewell, I gave the poor mother a packet of antibiotics, told her to take them just in case. That is all. I never met her again. Why she was homeless, what she had done, and why she was hiding from the police was also unknown to me. I didn't turn her in, as she had asked. Karina was confused. Mammy, I'm amazed. Why didn't you tell me this before? I could have never known about my own sister. How could you do that? Antonina Petrovna cried. I'm sorry, my daughter. I was terribly ashamed. My conscience has been burning all these years that I separated you, even though I myself lived like in Christ's bosom. I could have got Tanya up and on her feet. I was just afraid that Stephen would find out my terrible secret and leave me right away. Besides, how can you tell such a thing? Your family to me. Do you understand it or not? I don't even have the heart to call you adopted. I sincerely love you. Karina threw herself into the arms of her family. Sorry, Mommy. I love you a lot too, and I'm grateful for a happy, carefree childhood. And I love Daddy, and I couldn't even think that I was a stranger. All 3 of them had a long heart-to-heart talk, for they were bound together by a common thread of kinship and destiny. From that day on, the sisters were almost inseparable. Karina enjoyed babysitting the little ones on weekends, and now took them to her place when Tanya was on another flight. And for little Mila, Karina even became a godmother. And a year later, a representative of another branch came to Karina's company with a delegation. After the official part of the visit, there was to be a dinner party. Karina decided to invite Tanya there as well. The director, Yegor, immediately noticed such a beautiful young woman. He began to actively court, to pay compliments, and his colleague, Artem, courted Karina. When the guests were almost gone, Yegor asked Tanya quietly, "Let me walk you home, Tatiana, and maybe have a cup of coffee. I hate to part with you." The woman laughed. "You're wasting your breath. I'm a mother of 3. Usually after this phrase, any fan of the classics should evaporate. Who needs such a burden?" Yegor laughed too. "So our case is not a classic one. It doesn't scare me at all. I'm a widower, and I'm also raising my son alone. His name is Roma. He's 5 years old. So I totally understand. So I'll walk you out. Do you mind?" Tanya had forgotten what it was like to walk hand in hand with a man. They admired the bright stars and strolled leisurely through the night city. Tanya quietly turned the key in the lock. It was quiet in the apartment. The nightlight was on. There were toys scattered everywhere, and a pile of dishes and cookie crumbs in the kitchen. The little ones were asleep in their cribs. In the middle of the table, there was a set plate. Tanya opened it and saw a masterpiece: burnt eggs and a ketchup-drawn smile, and a note written with mistakes in a child's handwriting. "We made you dinner. We've done our homework. Bon appetit. We love you, Mommy." Tears flowed from Tanya's eyes past her will. She wiped them away with her hand and said, "It must be worth living for moments like these. They are the most important thing in the world. How I love them. You have no idea." She went quietly into the bedroom, readjusted the confused blanket, stroked everyone on the head, and kissed them softly. Then she and Igor sat down in the kitchen for coffee. Yegor was amazed at the courage and kindness of this fragile woman, working as a stewardess and raising 3 other people's children at the same time, and remained so attractive and desirable at the same time. He could not look at Tanya. He liked absolutely everything about her. How she squints in the sun, how she turns her head, tosses a curl behind her ear, laughs so clear and melodious. The man realized that he fell in love, completely and irrevocably. The couple began to date, and soon planned a modest wedding. Surprisingly, Tanya's children immediately accepted Yegor, and his son became friends with Tanya. And now they had 4 children together. Igor was a very successful businessman, and Tanya no longer needed to work. She could finally concentrate on her family, children, and herself. Yegor used to say jokingly, "And if you miss the sky, just say the word, and we'll fly the whole family wherever you say." Karina also found her love, Yegor's friend and companion, Artem. The man has long sought the woman's attention because the woman, painfully burned by her marriage to rascal Lesha, was afraid to let Artem into her soul. But he was persistent and patient. He was always there, surrounded her with such care and tenderness, that in the end, Karina gave up, and they also modestly signed. The woman did not want any more ostentatiousness. Now it was important for her to save her little world of love from everyone, and just be happy. The sisters had not seen each other for months, either because they were moving, or settling into a new family life, or because they were busy with household chores. Finally, they decided to sit together in a cozy cafe and talk about life. Karina at once noticed that Tanya had changed subtly. She became better, fresh, with shining eyes. She could not help it, and complimented her. "Tanyusha, you look wonderful. You've become completely different. I don't even know how to say it. Happy, calm. You changed your hair. Well done. It suits you very well. So, what shall we order? Coffee or a glass of wine?" Tanya answered intriguingly. "And I can't have wine now. I'm going to tell you the news. You're going to fall down. I'm pregnant. Don't say anything. I'm shocked myself." Karina even opened her mouth in surprise. "Wow. What about Yegor? Is he happy? That's crazy. Now you'll have 5 children. You're really something, Tanya." The woman laughed. Igor was very happy. But at first I even burst into tears. For some reason, I was so scared. I remembered my late friend Nastya, and I thought, God forbid anything should happen. How will I be alone with so many people? But on the other hand, I've always wanted to have his own baby, to breastfeed it, to bear. It must be a real pleasure, right? But Yeager surprised me here too. He opened a bank account for me and the kids. He says not to worry. And in general, Karina, I'm very happy with him. I finally felt like a woman. I began to sleep well, stopped fidgeting because of the constant anxiety that I cannot raise one child. We all together every weekend must go somewhere to rest. Kids just love it. And you, my good man. Karina happily reported as well. You know, I resisted for a long time. After that scoundrel Leshy, I saw all the other men as scoundrels. But Artem is completely different. He doesn't sing my praises or swear eternal love. But his actions speak for themselves. He actually proves his love, and this is very valuable. I hope I will be a mommy soon too. Looking at you, I really want to. I am happy for you, sis. It is so good that we met, that you found me, because it is so important to have a dear person on earth, my own little blood. And I have news for you too. I found out something about our biological mother, and I even found her grave. She hasn't been alive for a long time. Tanya even jumped up in her chair. You what? How did you do it? Who is she? Karina sighed. Katerina Terekova grew up in a dysfunctional family of alcoholics. That's why she went down the wrong path early on, got involved with a bad company, never really lived anywhere for a long time, and then she almost went to jail for stealing. I even managed to get a picture of her. Oh, and the beautiful appearance of our mother. Just look at her. Tanya was looking at an old, yellowed, crumpled photo. It showed a very beautiful, oriental-looking girl with long, curly hair and a charming smile. Now it was clear to Tanya who she and Karina resembled so much. The same eyes, long, fluffy eyelashes, and a mop of black hair. Tears flowed from her eyes, and she whispered, Mama, Mama, so beautiful and so unhappy. How could it be? Karina hugged her sister. Yes, Tanya. So now I understand why she immediately put us in the wrong hands. No need to blame her. Mom just wanted us to have a better fate than her own. We'll go to her grave tomorrow, clean it up, order a monument. No matter what our mom was, we are alive because of her.